of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Tonight's roll call: Casagrande.
Here.
DeMoss.
Here.
Calhoun.
Here.
Osenga.
Here.
McClure.
Here.
Wells.
Here.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is citizen comments on any subject except those items scheduled for public hearing. Madam Clerk, is anyone signed in?
Sorry, we do not have anyone signed in.
Is there anyone wishing to speak? Go ahead, sir, at the podium. If you could just state your name or inside or outside city limits, you have 3 minutes.
My name is Chris Lolamo, and I live outside the city limits, and I'm here to ask you guys to consider strongly that you allow every ratepayer, electric utility ratepayer, to have a chance to vote on the sale of the electric utility. I think that's real important. I think that's real important that everybody gets a chance to vote. And that's all I got to say. And except, thank you for all that you do with the hard work you put in. I really appreciate it. You do great things for our community.
Thank you so much, sir. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Hearing and seeing none, next is the approval of the agenda and consent agenda, and I'm looking for a motion and a second.
I move for the approval of the agenda and the consent agenda.
I'll second. Are there any changes? Vice Mayor?
I'd like to add Resolution 2022-086 to the consent agenda.
Is there any objection? Okay. Any other changes? Hearing and seeing none, Madam Clerk, let's call for a vote, please.
Voting on the approval of tonight's agenda and consent agenda as amended: DeMoss.
Yes.
Wells.
Yes.
McClure.
Yes.
Casagrande.
Yes.
Calhoun.
Yes.
Osenga.
Yes.
And Mayor Terry.
Yes.
Your agenda and consent agenda have been approved and approved on tonight's consent agenda. The introduction of ordinance 2022-010, amending Seward City Code, Title I, General Provisions. This ordinance will come for public hearing and enactment on August 22nd, 2022. Introduced also is ordinance 2022-011, amending Seward City Code Chapter 2.10, City Council to integrate the rules from the City Council Rules of Procedure to provide for clarifying amendments. This ordinance will also come for public hearing and enactment on August 22nd, 2022. You have approved Resolution 2022-085, accepting and appropriating funds from the Rasmussen Foundation grant in the amount of $7,000 for the microfilm scanner for the Seward Community Library and Museum. Resolution 2022-086, authorizing the city manager to purchase a 2022 Chevrolet Silverado 2500 regular cab from Anchorage Chevrolet to replace an electric operations supervisor truck using the state of Alaska procurement process for competitive bidding in the amount not to exceed $48,479 and appropriating funds. You have approved the July 25th City Council special meeting minutes, the July 25th, 2022 City Council regular meeting minutes, and you have authorized through Action Memorandum 2022-006, you have authorized the city manager to purchase 140 fire rings and 70 picnic tables for the municipal campgrounds in the amount of $85,965.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next on the agenda is Proclamations and Awards, and the first one is remembering John Gage. Go ahead and ask the family to join me up here. Why don't you guys stand here?
Good try.
Just want to thank the family for coming tonight. So, whereas the Seward City Council joins the city staff and all members of the community in remembering John Gage. Whereas John was a kind and beloved resident of Seward, whose passing will be deeply felt throughout the community for many years to come. Whereas John was dedicated to serving our community, having worked for 15 years first for the city, first in the harbor, and then as the fire chief, before moving to Mexico, where he spent 22 years as a heavy equipment operator. Whereas in the words of Metco's Alaska owner Cole Peterson, John was as hard a worker as they come, sometimes working 16 to 18 hours to get the job done. He spent many hours behind the sticks of our large dozers and excavators defending city and borough roads, bridges, and other infrastructure. Whereas throughout his life and career, John touched the lives of countless people in the community and raised a wonderful family in Seward with his wife Marie. And whereas John will be remembered for his love and dedication to our community and the citizens who live here. Now therefore I, Christy Terry, Mayor of the City of Seward, Alaska, ask you to join me in recognizing the contributions made by John Gage and expressing our deepest condolences to the Gage family.
One thing is he worked for the city 25 years.
Oh my goodness, what does it say in here?
15.
Oh, okay, so we are going to get this updated and corrected, and we will get that. But would you say a few words, please?
Oh, no, I just appreciate everything everybody's done.
And I just wanted to add that there was, he was Little League coach and born here, Cub Scout leader, foster parents to over 100 foster kids. He helped on the John Cemetery and countless other projects that he was assisting in the background. Moms.
Sea Life Center flowers.
Yeah.
City lost a good one for sure. And a testament to him is your wonderful family, and we're so appreciative of
We
that.
have 40 family members come.
So how many grandkids did he have total?
12.
12 grandkids, and even dozen. And they're handsome and beautiful too. Well, we just wanted to recognize, as a longstanding city employee and everything else that he's done for this community, Seward wouldn't be the same without him. So I want to thank you guys.
Yes, thank you all.
What a testament to one person can do and make a difference in our community. So I want to thank the family for coming today. I know that that's hard. Another two folks I want to thank, they're not able to be here tonight, but I wanted to recognize Gary Cease for his long-standing service on the Planning and Zoning Commission. Again, that's a situation where we need volunteers. And recognizing his wife Cheryl Cease for her long-standing service on the Historic Preservation Commission. Both those citizens have done great work in those roles. Next on the agenda is the city manager's report. City manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My report is on page 4, but I wanted to add a few items that have transpired since that time frame. Chief Nickel held another jail meeting with the other municipalities that have, we're calling state-owned jails managed by municipalities. We talked about the upcoming contracts and also the funding level. As you know, the budget was increased by $3 million, which is wonderful for the jails. However, the allocation is very different than we expected. There are some municipalities that are fully funded, some are overfunded, and we continue to be underfunded. So we're not the only ones. We are actually out of contract right now. We have not received the contract. And then it is our understanding the contracts, we haven't seen them. But what we understand is that they have not been updated. So I'm forming a working group with the other city managers, so that way the chiefs have been meeting, but we bring in the other city managers to talk about the contracts and our expectation. There's some great ideas for the contracts that actually will be great for the state, and we just want to be able to have those conversations. So that's going on with the jails. Today we met with Genevieve and Dawn, they're our DC lobbyists, part of the team of DC lobbyists, and it was really nice to have them here in Seward in person and to talk through some of the things that are going on. I have a written report that you will receive. I'll receive it you'll receive it via email, and then also it will be in the next council packet for the public, and it's available. I'll send it to Brenda as well, so the public can view it before that as well. But we talked about the federal budget appropriations that happened this year, and also Coast Guard issues. And as we know, Senator Sullivan has really been so helpful for Seward. At one point, there was danger of the funding that was allocated for Seward going to other projects, and Dan Sullivan stepped in and said absolutely not. And so the funding is staying for Seward projects, the housing, and then for the FRC. The housing folks were actually in town and met with them, and they asked about city-owned properties, private-owned properties, and are taking that information and will send it to their supervisors. We've been asked what will happen after that as far as development, and we were told there's going to be a lot more information coming out, but as far as choosing a developer, they'll put out an RFP for that. So at the point that they're ready, there will be an RFP, and when we receive it, we'll make that also, it'll be public, but we'll also spread it around. There are some funding opportunities that have come out, and of course we're looking at those, and one being the rural ferry funding. We do have a legislator that is very much interested in the ferry system coming back to Seward, so I'm quite sure Representative Stutz is following that legislation, and we'll be speaking with her on that. There are formula grants that are coming out through DOT, and they're regarding more resiliency to natural hazards, including climate change, sea level rise, flooding, extreme weather events. Right now, that funding is with DOT, and we'll continue to watch it to see if it goes out to municipalities. Airport terminal programs, that's a DOT project also, that's receiving funding. Bridge investment program, the borough is, probably Cindy can speak to that more. The borough is submitting a grant application for that, for bridges within the borough. We do have a bridge here in the city, the bridge out to Little Creek, and that one we received a letter from DOT. They did an inspection and that there are no deficiencies on that bridge. We'll continue to watch that because this is a 5-year program, so we'll continue to watch it and we'll submit should there be any deficiencies. Our concern is regarding the Army Corps of Engineer, of course, will use that bridge and the equipment that may go over that bridge, so we'll watch that for deficiencies. And then a Safe Streets for All program, and I do believe the borough might be looking at that one. There's also another initiative, it's called Build Back Better Bill 3.0, and it's about port emissions and to meet the upcoming mandates regarding being, how do they put it, clean energy and in all ports, which again would speak to electrification of ports. There will be a broadband summit on August 9th, so tomorrow, in Anchorage, and AML was going to be involved in that. So that's pretty much it. Again, you will get that as a written report, but it was really nice meeting with them and then bouncing ideas off and other items that are going on in Seward.
Thank you. Are there questions for the city manager? Any questions? Great. Go ahead.
Sorry, just a quick one, and I didn't know if Maggie was going to speak from Parks and Rec or not, but I had a question about the memorial benches, if they've been placed yet, or...
Do you have an update? Do you want to come up?
I don't.
Oh, okay.
One of many very important items, but Allie has been out for a while, so once she gets back on Wednesday, we're going to revisit the memorial benches issue. There's a few outstanding issues with that, so, and it's incredibly important, so.
Yeah,
we're
thank you.
definitely keeping it high on the priority.
And then I just wanted to say the flowers are looking amazing.
Oh man, our gardener's like
Looks so
amazing.
good. Thank you.
I didn't know what I didn't know about gardening. I'm learning a lot.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for, go ahead.
I do have a question on the campground revenues on page 44, and I apologize if this has already been asked, but in April, they were super high. Do we collect prepayments?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
The bookings start in April, and so they're paying online in April.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead. Follow up to Councilmember Casagrande regarding that. I noticed that as well, and it would probably, I would like to see what the actual occupancy is compared to last year as far as campgrounds. If we could, just out of curiosity, to see where we're at revenue-wise.
Sure, we'll
Thank
bring
you.
that back to you.
Sorry, can I get a repeat? The revenues from the same time frame from last year on a comparison?
Comparative, yeah, where we're at. Either occupancy per month or revenue overall, and that just year-to-date is fine.
We'll bring that back to you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Next on the agenda is the city attorney's report, starting on page 47. Welcome. Don't know that you're going to be able to make it home tonight, but...
I'm staying overnight.
Okay, good.
I didn't want to play road closure roulette, so I played it safe.
Good.
Thanks, glad to be here. Madam Mayor, Council, fairly routine month in the legal department, which is how we like it. A couple of personnel matters, which is typical. We had some assistance for community development, a couple of questions about zoning, and there's a code enforcement matter that's ongoing. We've got a couple things coming down the pike to let you be aware of. Of course, assuming the utility sale is going to go forward, at least at some, as the progress goes forward, pending a voter decision, there's a lot involved legally in facilitating that deal, so to speak. And so I'm anticipating quite a bit of work in that respect between now and the end of the year. They're starting, the Planning Commission, you probably know, they're starting to look at short-term rentals that will ultimately result in an ordinance, I'm sure. And we've started thinking about how that might look, just in big picture, some of the bigger picture legal issues that might be involved with it. We've got, it's exciting to me to see the recodification kind of making its way to council. This is something I started working on quite a while ago. And so part of it is in before you this evening, and there'll be bits and pieces that come forward because it makes it a little bit easier to digest. So I'm involved in there'll be some final review of that. And the other item that's sort of in progress but won't be before you till sometime in September, probably the last meeting, are reworking some communications leases. I've kind of started that process by reaching out to make contact with current users of city property. Hope to finish that up by the end of the month. So I can take questions.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions for the city attorney? Go ahead.
I had asked administration, the constituent had asked me about drug testing and if marijuana could be removed from drug testing for city employees because it's legal in Alaska now. Is that what you're referring to when you advised on current federal drug testing rules? And
absolutely.
Could you speak to that?
So when it comes to city employees, there's basically two major groupings. Some fall under federal guidelines and regulations. They're folks that work in what are called safety-sensitive positions or require a commercial driver's license. And then there's everyone else, but neither the federal government nor this less restricted group, I guess, for lack of a better term, specifically mandate drug testing for marijuana. That's a policy decision made by the employer.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Going to the work that's being done for planning and zoning to regulate short-term lodging ordinance, can you say approximately how many hours have been spent thus far on that?
By me?
Yeah.
Yes, I can. I would say less than 2.
Okay, great.
So all I was doing was putting out some things about, well, here's something to watch out for. And primarily, the thing that concerns me as a city attorney is any desire to treat residents of Seward differently than non-residents. Okay, that's, to me, that raises little red flags and stuff, so, but it hasn't been a lot of work yet because the details of the ordinance are still being developed as a policy matter.
A separate question, kind of follow-up. Can you look into a crystal ball and say about how much you foresee attorney time being spent on the electric utility potential sale?
Well, I could certainly tell you, this is a big deal. So my concept in terms of how much time it's going to make, it could take between $25,000 and $50,000 of legal fees. But I think if somebody's looking to purchase an asset of this size, kind of including that in what you expect to be paid, kind of makes some sense to me. So, of course, you can never tell, numbers are numbers, but I'm certainly hoping that there'll be a way to recoup some of that cost as part of the sale.
And that would be my question. You're coding that in such a way where that can be tracked? Then?
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the city attorney?
Thorough report. Thank you again for joining us.
You're welcome.
Borough Assembly report. Welcome, Madam Assembly Mayor, member.
Was I called mayor last time too? This is not. Good evening, Mayor, Council, Administration, and members of the public. Few and far between, but they're out there in TV land. So there hasn't been a Borough Assembly meeting since my last report to the city, and that I've been working with some folks on road issues, and to include the DOT plans through Moose Pass, which would affect many of us, but also highly affect that community. So if any of you know any well-informed friendlies in the organization of the DOT, I love their contact info. And we'll see what the Assembly can do to help. Besides the items I covered last meeting that are upcoming for public comment and enactment tomorrow at the Assembly, there's a few new items that I'll touch base on. Well, there's quite a few actually when I got to looking at it. So many that I asked Dustin for the Wi-Fi so I could just get into iLegislate. There's a resolution that will continue joint funding with the USGS to maintain the stream river gauges and the gauging stations, which is important for our flood zones over here. And that real-time data, near real-time data, is available online at waterdata.usgs.gov/NWIS/. Resolution, another one, authorizing a full-time position in the IT department. The borough's been running about 30 positions short. So I was glad to see that they're putting together some new job descriptions and combining some positions, so it's not going to be an increase to outlay, but hopefully it will help all of us who use that IT department over there. There's a big resolution put forth by the mayor supporting the Alaska LNG project, requesting timely completion of federal review and permitting processes, including a Department of Energy export license as being in the best interests of local, state, and federal energy security and resiliency. And I'm reading this resolution. He even ties in that it's in the best interest of green energy as well. So he's really broadening the scope to get this enacted, and it's going to be sent to the U.S. congressional delegation and the governor and the president as well. And so now moving on to iLegislate, there were quite a few things that would be of some importance over here. Sorry, glad it's a short meeting. So there's a lot of resolutions and ordinances that either just are accepting the money as happens here, and a lot of them that are paying things. And it always concerned me when we see money coming out of the borough to pay for South Peninsula Hospital and Central Emergency Services. But I just want to remind us and me that those are all covered under service area mill rate. So there's a big document, as Sue knows, that tells what everybody's mill rate is, and those monies that are going out, you'll see it a lot in the agenda that Brenda puts in the paper, but it is not coming out of the collective general fund. There is several parts about the upcoming election on this one is the reapportionment. After they did the population, Sue was on the committee that helped with this, and the verbiage is in these ordinances, and it will be voted on by all borough voters, that either it's a 9 single-member district with a little bit of tweaking of lines, or an 11 single-member district. And so those will be up for vote here for us. And then the other proposition summary is for the education dollars. And Seward's track and field project is listed jointly with Nikiski's for $4,500,000. And then it says site improvements are needed. Nikiski and Seward High School track surface and base asphalt have exceeded their useful life and are now deteriorating, and artificial turf will enable the school district and community greater utilization than natural turf without risking damage. So I never heard anything about artificial turf, so I hope Micah's listening, and the football coach and everybody else that uses that field, on how it's going to be to have artificial turf up there. And then the last proposition that'll be on the ballot is for the Central Emergency Services area. They want to build a new fire station, and that won't be on the ballots over here. And then there's a lot of appointments, and none of them are really from this side of the peninsula. There is a lot still going on with the conditional land use permit, which doesn't affect Seward as much either for gravel pits, because we can take our gravel out of the rivers here. But it's taking up a lot of time and a lot of consternation for the assembly members. So, does anyone have any questions on anything on the agenda that they read out of the paper?
Does anyone have any questions for these?
It's not a question, but I had mentioned this before, and since you mentioned the reapportionment, we were required by the state, I believe, to put 2 options on the ballot. We pretty unanimously in the committee, it was a really good committee, decided the 9-member with just a little revisiting, which wouldn't really affect us at all, would be the preferred one, but we had to put 2 options, so a 9 or an 11. So if anybody has questions about that, you can ask me about it too. But that's an interesting thing, that there has to be an option. I know.
Any other questions? Thank you so much for coming. Thorough, detailed report. Other reports and announcements, there are none. Presentations, there are none. No public hearings, no unfinished business. The 2 ordinances for introduction were on the consent agenda. 85 and 86 were on the consent agenda, and we're down to Resolution 2022-087. Madam Clerk.
Resolution 2022-087 is submitting the question of selling the City of Seward electric utility to the qualified City of Seward voters at a special election in and for the City of Seward on May 2nd, 2023.
And I'm looking for a motion and a second.
I move for the approval of Resolution 2022-087.
Second.
City Manager?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This resolution is coming before you as the outcome of our special meeting that we had. And and the direction to bring this resolution forward to you for a vote. As the resolution states, it would put the question of selling, and the question is in your packet on page 218, and it has been reviewed by the attorney. The question is, shall the city of Seward sell the Seward electric utility with the negotiated terms and conditions previously approved by city council that are contingent on voter approval? So that is the question that, if this resolution is approved, will go on the ballot. It would be the May 2nd, as you stated, 2023 ballot.
Go ahead. Oh, I have a question. So, clearly, the electric utility will go to the voters. But we also sit as a board of adjustment for the whole electric utility. Is there a way to do an advisory vote on that same day? I know we discussed that during the special meeting. Would it have to be incorporated into this, or can you concurrently continue to work on that as an option?
Do you mean for outside the city limits? We are going.
Like an advisory vote?
Yes. In fact, the clerk and I spoke about it today, and we'll put that together for the advisory vote for the ratepayers outside the city. As you know, we'll have a process to determine the ratepayers, but we do plan on doing that.
Okay, so that is the plan, and it doesn't need to be incorporated in any way in this resolution, because that's already something you're working on?
Yes.
Okay. Councilmember?
So just to be clear for the residents outside the city, I think we should just make it clear that it's an advisory vote, right? But overall, it's the citizen, am I correct? It's the inside city limit citizens that actually get to vote on the final?
Yes.
Okay.
And if I may expand, that is, and the attorney, and we did speak, of course, to the attorney and about it, that's because the city of Seward owns the utility, and so it's city of Seward voters that vote on the utility. And that's stated in the charter.
Do you have a question or a comment?
Yes, I am curious if we've figured out about what it's going to cost to get us to the point to get everybody to vote, to the election.
Go ahead.
Do you mean for the special election, the clerk stated it would be 6,000, and do you mean the appropriation of funds for that? To influence the outcome of the election?
I guess, what are we committing right now to as far as financially, if we are moving forward with this resolution? Just the cost of the election.
Mm-hmm. So in this resolution, it is the cost of the election, and the next resolution, it's appropriating funds for the influence the outcome of the election.
And do we know what those?
We don't know Madam Mayor, I don't know if you want me to
Go
start
ahead.
on the next one.
Thank
Okay. We don't know the exact cost. I put in 25,000. That could be, I honestly believe that to be very high, but I did that, on purpose so there would be enough funds, and then any funds that we do not expend will go back to the electric reserves.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Can I speak?
Go ahead.
And another cost that we'll be looking at is the valuation of the assets. I have been talking with firms, so I'm hoping to nail that process down over the next week or so. And then I'll be able to discuss cost. It would be, because I'm still taking estimates, I don't want to go and share that information.
Madam,
Go ahead.
I won't share the exact amount, but it is much lower than we expected, under $20,000 for the valuation.
So again, this resolution, I think those are important things to discuss because it has to do with at least moving forward with the question of selling so that we have kind of a financial background. But right now, it's just submitting the question of selling. So it's setting the special election with the ballot question. Go ahead.
I think it's important to note for the ratepayers outside of the city of Seward that, and please, city attorney, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's no way for us, we're not, I apologize, there's no way for us to change it so that the ratepayers outside the city can vote.
Can do it binding.
And so I just want to make sure that those ratepayers realize that we discussed it, we heard them, and there's just no way, right? Am I correct? city attorney, there's no way to allow them an opportunity to vote. Is that
Well, I
correct?
think you're talking about an advisory vote, but.
An advisory vote, yes,
There's no
sir.
way to have their vote count in calculation of whether or not the required number of voters have approved the sale of this City of Seward asset.
And I just thought that it was, I'm sorry, I just thought it was important that we make that public, that the ratepayers absolutely know that we did consider it and we looked to see if it was possible. Thank you.
So I apologize, I wasn't at the meeting for this. And if administration could just give a quick rundown, basically by approving this ballot question, there's, with the negotiated terms and conditions previously approved. So what does that timeline look like?
I have to. We actually met on timeline today, and I do have a draft in front of me on the timeline. So the discussion was that after this meeting, should it move forward, then a limited solicitation RFP would be issued, and I think we're about a week out from that after approval, if there's approval, issued for electric companies, electric companies to submit their RFP to be the provider of electric. After the period closes, then those RFPs would be brought to the council, and then the process would be, then I would start negotiations as directed by council, and go flip to the time frame. So the proposals will be due September 7th. The review, we're hoping to have completed, and we'll be reviewing, and then it'll go to council, recommended for negotiation September 30th, and there'll be meetings built in for this time frame. Negotiated contract documents finalized in November, and then council approval of the contract no later than December. So in essence, what we're doing is having the information regarding who will be the provider by the end of December, so whoever that is chosen then has the opportunity to provide public information starting in January up until the election. So that the voters, that's that statement, so the voters will know who they would be, who the provider would be for this election, the ballot question. Does that answer your question?
Did you have a follow-up?
If I may, yes. So it basically looks like we're approving the question to go on the ballot. Council will approve the RFP. Council will approve the selected winner of the RFP. Council will approve the terms and conditions. We won't sign a contract until the voters vote on it. Is that?
Go ahead. Okay, so we will sign a contract contingent upon voter approvals and city council ratification of the election. So that will come back again. As far as the RFP, it is something that I can issue without council approval, so that's what I'm going to be doing.
So basically, once we approve this, the next step would be the council will have a contract before them that we've spent about $25,000 in negotiating and getting to that point.
Oh, you mean of the attorney time?
Yeah, and just like negotiating administration time. And then council will decide to vote, approve. So let's just say, my question that is on the table right now about this resolution is, let's just say you guys negotiate and there's no contract that council wants to approve.
Right.
What happens to this?
Then we can actually withdraw
Okay.
the ballot question and not have the special election. And that, we have talked about that. If there is not an acceptable offer, there won't be an election.
Right.
Because we are not going to want to sell if there's not an acceptable offer.
Madam Mayor, if I may, I don't know if this is an appropriate time to ask, so I can ask at some other point, but as far as the negotiating of the contract, a couple questions that I would have is the PERS that we're going to be left to have to pay and the motor pool debt.
all of that will be part of negotiations.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. We are ready for a vote. Voting on the approval of Resolution 2022-087. DeMoss?
Yes.
McClure?
Yes.
Casagrande?
Yes.
Wells?
Yes.
Losenga?
Yes.
Calhoun?
Yes.
Mayor Terry?
Yes.
That resolution is approved.
Next on the agenda is Resolution 2022-088. Madam Clerk?
Resolution 2022-088 is amending the 2022 City of Seward budget to appropriate funds in the amount of $25,000 to influence the outcome of election concerning the ballot proposition, submitting the question of selling the City of Seward electric utility to the qualified City of Seward voters at a special election in and for the City of Seward on May 2nd, 2023.
And I need a motion and a second, please.
I move for the approval of Resolution 2022-088.
I second.
City Manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In order to influence the outcome of an election, meaning providing information, we need to appropriate money to do so, and I'm going to add a little caveat that we can provide neutral information without having to appropriate funds. The danger becomes what is neutral to one person may not be neutral to another. So we want to be very careful in that. What these funds are going to be used for, I can tell you we don't have firm plans on these. At some point, we know we will provide flyers or some kind of information like that, maybe newspaper article, something to that effect, post to town hall. We don't know yet. We do not have that firm information. We will work to develop that at a later point. But I chose 25,000 just as an amount, and as I stated, if we do not use it, then it will return to the electric utility.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Go ahead.
I don't want to make things difficult, but I'm just going to throw this out there for purposes of discussion. If I don't get a second, it fails, it's fine. But I'd like to amend the resolution to strike outcome and replace it with voter turnout.
Mayor? Go ahead. That's actually state statute language.
Oh,
That's directly out of state statute.
okay, well then I don't need to. It just seems already influential. So could you explain that?
I might end up turning to the city attorney, but the reason why I state it is straight out of statute, and I can't speak to why it was adopted that way. It is interesting that nowadays that is different than it used to be when this language was adopted about influencing the outcome of election is negative connotation, but this is directly out of that, meaning I believe, and I would turn to Brooks, that the legislature meant that truly if you provide anything other than neutral information, you are trying to influence the outcome. As far as the legislature's intent.
The state law, the premise for requiring council action on this is a decision that the city will or may be issuing information about the election. If in fact that information was going to be completely neutral, such as, the election is this date, don't forget to vote, the election is this, if that's all that was being done, you would not need a resolution. The state law requires advance council authorization and a specific appropriation only if the information that's disseminated by the city is intended to influence the outcome of the election. So what the city manager is saying is not that there's a specific plan to do that at this time, but that there certainly is a plan to put out information, including the fact that we're talking about this in a council meeting, et cetera, and that it's at least theoretically possible that somebody could say, oh, you're trying to influence the outcome of the election, and therefore, you violate the law by not appropriating money. So we're kind of covering that base ahead of time, and as to exactly what happens, or I think in the big picture, the general plan is probably that, hey, you want to buy the utility, it's up to you to convince the voters that you're offering a good deal and that they should approve it. I think the bulk of the effort that influence the vote, so to speak, will be on the entity that wants to buy this electric utility. But at the same time, the city is undoubtedly going to be doing something to publicize the election, to get out the vote. I mean, we're going to be holding the whole advisory election. I mean, some people could say, hey, that's designed to, I don't really know that that would be true or not, in an accurate legal analysis, but we're just trying to sort of do a little protective action in advance.
Go ahead.
And this is really standard, the borough does this all the time. I mean, it's just sort of, just cover yourself just in case language. So, and that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to spend any money, really, other than we'd have to put advertisements out about the election, right?
Any other questions for administration? Go ahead.
I just have to, for the record, I mean, obviously I don't want to spend $25,000 to influence the outcome of the election, but now with the understanding the attorney's explanation, I hope that we're just using this money to inform people that there's a special election and to really be careful of the money that we're spending to distribute information that very well could appear to be biased to one side or another. So just, I hope that we're really mindful of that.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, I think we're ready to call for a vote.
Voting on the approval of resolution 2022-088. McClure?
Yes.
Casagrande?
Yes.
Demoss?
Yes.
Calhoun?
Yes.
Osenda?
Yes.
Wells?
Yes.
Mayor Terry?
Yes.
That resolution is approved.
Our other new business items were all approved on the consent agenda. We have no informational items and reports. And now we are down to citizen comments. There's no sign-in for this comment period, and time is limited to 5 minutes per speaker. Go ahead.
Cindy from inside city limits, but this is more to respond to the city manager's question regarding the bridges. There are 12 borough bridges, 7 of them are in the Seward area. And the other item that you brought up, I haven't heard a thing about. So, and then one other item that was on the agenda for tomorrow night is the ordinance that would amend the borough code to remove requirements for newspaper publication of delinquent sales tax lists and public posting of certificates of registration lists, and providing instead for publication of such information on the borough website. I've already been talked to by a constituent that is not in favor of this because not everyone has internet, and people, for some reason, like to see those lists and like to, is my name on that list? So, or my grandma's, so I can go pay it for her,
Right.
whatever. But, so I'm willing to hear from anybody. It's only gonna save $2,450 of borough funds, and I think that we can continue to see it in the papers, so I can say my vote with that right now. Anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Hearing and seeing none, next on the agenda is council and administration comments in response to citizen comments, and I'll start off with administration.
I don't have anything further, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Wells?
Nothing further, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Calhoun?
No, I'd just like to thank Public Works and stuff for getting that water situation taken care of in such a rapid manner that happened the other day. That was a good job. It didn't take too long, so just think everybody's working hard through the summer, enjoying everything. Salmon Derby is coming. And just as a reminder, I know it's out there, but there is a memorial and celebration of life for Hugh Darling at the American Legion this coming Sunday at 1:30. And then there will also be a memorial celebration of life for Virginia Hansen, who just passed away a few days ago, and that will be at the Legion at 4 p.m. downstairs. So, our condolences to Charlie Jackson and his family, Virginia's family, on her recent passing.
Councilmember Casagrande?
I'd like to thank the fire department for their super colorful back to school presentation that they have in the city manager's report. It's really great. Kids are going back to school. You'll see them on the roads, the great Sea Lion Drive. Traffic wait in the morning should be back at it, so just be careful. And a lot of kids riding their bikes, especially the first couple weeks of school. And that part of the highway can be really, really busy and intense. So that's about it. Thank you. Councilmember Demas?
Nothing. Thanks.
Councilmember Osinga? Councilmember McClure? Vice Mayor McClure?
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to give a big shout out to the water, to Doug and his entire crew. I was the one that called him about it, and between my calling him and my water being back on, it was almost just under an hour, and that's just really remarkable for what all happened there. And as an addendum to that, his guys have been really busy doing a big dig on 4th Avenue just up the street from my mom's house. And you know, one of the things is you got to be real careful what you flush, because there are certain things that shouldn't be flushed, and I think that was the issue. And so those guys do a really, really amazing job. Salmon Derby's coming really soon. And next meeting, I'm going to give a big announcement about Founders Day, August 28th. And we've got some fun things going on for Founders Day, so that's what I've got.
Great, thank you. I want to share from Kashiro City. This in front of us is as a token of their continued friendship. This is a commemorative plaque for our traditional silver salmon derby, and they wish our event will be a great success. And if you remember, we sent in Alaska Gold Pan to celebrate their port festival, and they gave it to the winner of their rowboat race. So yes, it's still rowboat race, so that's fun. So that's, you know, beautiful. It has cranes on that, so we'll share that with the chamber. And then I want to share, I'm wearing vote earrings. I want to share, not outcoming any elections, but just saying that absentee in person for the August 16th election is happening now at the clerk's office. So you can go up there during Monday through Friday normal business hours and vote absentee in person. I did so today. And then also just remind Seward citizens that packets are available online and also at the clerk's office if you'd like to run for council or mayor. And those are due back into the clerk's office by August 15th. Okay, so, and then that will be for the election later in October. So if you have any questions, you can also just check with the clerk's office. You can go online or call their office and she will be very helpful. And with that, before 8 o'clock rolls around, I am going to adjourn the meeting at 7:53.
Oh my gosh.